Can hear you. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
About to start here. Good morning. Do you know if Kai's planning to join us?
He just got home from his Easter trip to the mountains.
Can hear you.
Driving all the way, so I doubt it.
All right. Hopefully he's got better things to do. Anyway, great to see everyone. It's been a busy month. Ernest has been churning out lots of documents and dialogues, which is very exciting. And so we just jump right into it?
Yeah.
You want to share your screen, Ernest?
Yes. Let me first get to the document, right? Okay. I have the other stuff already than this one, but it's not too long. Well, I'll speak while I get this ready.
Or if you want, I can give a little background for our viewers while you're setting up, if that's easier.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, so we started with a discussion of SOLID and comparing it to ValPlan. And we did a bunch of analyses of varying quality, but I think we convinced ourselves that there was enough there to be worth investigating further. And Ernest volunteered to set up a pod because that seemed both the highest impact and the greatest uncertainty. And so he's been busy blogging and dialoguing with Kai. And my general sense from the conversation is that technically, in terms of the underlying protocols, the SOLID infrastructure and the pod implementations are quite interesting and robust. From a semantic level and a usability level, the open question we had was, today, is there anything interesting you can do with a pod? Or are there enough other services and well-defined schemas that you can exchange data in a useful way? And this related to the question of whether the Trini pod, I guess, provided by
Graphmetrics.
Yeah, Graphmetrics is consumer friendly enough for our purposes. So that's kind of where, is that a reasonable summary of the state of the art, Ernest?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So, well, let me present this document, which part of it is in reverse order. That's why I'm scrolling down. But anyway, the Pod Chronicles is the document that kind of describes the homework and the steps that I took. So, like I said, and
let me say, you've been on fire blogging after I don't know, 2 years and we're trying to get you to write something in public.
Yeah.
You've just been grinding out. Is this URL public or is this still an internal document?
No, it is public.
Okay.
It is totally public. Should I share it in the chat?
If you post the URL in there, that'd be great. Right now, this is the local file, but I think it's also available on the web somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can do it afterwards if it's hard to find. I'll paste it in the YouTube comments.
Okay. Yeah, this reverse thing is. I wish it had a table of contents. So
you could just start at the end and give us the punchline, and then we can work back to some of the details.
Okay, I'm not sure that there is a punchline really, but what happened at the end is that I wanted to do a couple of things. One, create a pod, and I did it in Graphmetrics. And I was I did that. Then I wanted to see if I could open that pod with another SOLID app, and I did that with the peer what's Pebble. Yeah, so some app that is supposed to help you examine your pad and your pod and add files to it. So, and that worked. I added a file to it, but the experience was not the experience that you would expect like something like iCloud or Google Drive. It was it was very different from that. And when I tried to view a file that I uploaded, I couldn't. It was the I wasn't authorized. But the way that it was showing me these peer app, it gave me a URL. It linked to some URL, but then I wasn't authorized to see the contents, so that was annoying. But then I tried with another but examining app, and I was able to see it. So let me go through. So in that respect, it was a success. I was able to upload a file to my pod, and I was able to view it from another app, from a different application. And yeah, so I started with graph metrics. I went to the second app, and then I used the third app to examine. So let me go through. See, now that you have the summary, let me just show you some screenshots of the process. So because it's an interesting process. So this is the first day, March 19th. So I started at the Solid website, and I have screenshots of what people would see. So this is what they show you. So they talk about solid pods, and in the document I post questions like what I was thinking. Like he mentioned things like slices, and I'm like, what is that? I don't think it went into defining what that is. So you just keep flying kind of blind, but you trust that things will work out. So this is, I summarize what the Solid website says, that a pod can store any kind of information. You control access to the data in there, and so I question the wording that it uses. So it says applications use standard, open, and interoperable data formats and protocols. Well, that's a whole lot of jargon. I don't know what that means, and I don't know that regular people will know what that means. That's essentially a what is it, context-free jargon or whatever. That kind of sentence is just horrible, and I hate it when I see it, because it's just it doesn't say anything. So anyway, it talks about solid servers, which are so when you have a pod, you need an entity that will host that pod and will serve it to others. So that's those are the major concepts: pods, solid servers, and then there's a third one that is like the application. So the applications that contact the servers to access your pod and interact with it. So yeah, here are the entities. The main entity is a pod provider, which is different from a pod server. But anyway, there are concepts like linked data, which this is more like for data people. Regular people won't understand that. So I googled it. So what is linked data? So I showed here that I googled that, and I got some information. So
I think this is what we talked about in terms of taxonomies, right? Is that different communities of interest need to agree on their taxonomy for how you ship, widgets around the world, but also like things like the Fediverse has a bunch of standards for how you share social data, right? This is a tweet, this is a profile, things like that. And that was one of the questions that we had was, are there enough, consumer grade taxonomies that you actually get useful sharing between pods, right? I could use my pod with a Twitter equivalent or a Facebook equivalent, or things like that, so that this becomes a viable alternative to the Web 2.0 mega corporations. At least that was one of my questions.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about the solid progress in that regard. Like I mentioned, the Fediverse, I'm on Mastodon, and I follow some of the people that are involved in the Fediverse, so I see some discussions. It's kind of advancing, but it's still nascent. They're still questioning how to implement this or that, or how to do all kinds of things. Just when it comes to the postings, the tweet things.
Activity Pub, I guess, is the standard that they were using.
Yeah, and but they're still coalescing into something. But there's discussion.
I don't want to drag you too far. You originally said only 15 minutes, but you're welcome to take more time.
Oh,
I'm not
am I in?
too much.
Oh yeah, I'm getting close to that. So anyway, load it up. So I think I gave the summary that there were some hiccups, but I was successful in my the goals. Yeah, so this is let me go back. Okay, so this is the second day, and this is where when I was creating a pod, and I went to the Trinity and did it through graph. After it was it wasn't super smooth, the process, and Graphmetrics is at this point, even though it's at this point is user ready, right? But the user in particular is like a company or because of the product that the Trinity product is a very specialized product. So it is using the pod as a data store and a way to share things. But
Yep.
the Trinity, right? The Trinity product itself doesn't extend it into the pods. So it uses pods, but another a pod provider or or an application, I don't think will be able to use that information that Trinity stores in your pod, unless they'll have to contact. I don't know if it's possible. It's not. They cannot use and modify that information without Trinity being involved.
It seems to be like their main value add is their proprietary file format for their data. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, exactly. And the things that they can do with like a source document, like a PDF file, they can analyze it and answer questions, or structure the information, present the information in a way that is easier to help the user instead of having to read the whole document. The Trinity product kind of summarizes things in a way that the reader can get there quickly. So yeah, so I did that. I created a pod, and I went through the yeah, I should have. Yeah, it's gonna. So yeah, I think I.
All right. So
did.
maybe just as a kind of a wrap up, we can ask you what I call something that's called the flow questions. What did you what did you feel during the process? What did you like about the technology? What did you observe that surprised you? And what are your biggest questions that you still wonder about?
Well, the flow is very technical. You have to know quite a bit about web servers and web pages and web resources and URIs and how those things work to get unstuck, because and you have to be able to handle when things don't work as the application itself says that should work, or especially at this time that the SOLID is so new and the app developers are getting in there and developing products on a beta product. So the apps themselves are not super smooth but they do work, at least the critical flow that I experimented with. It works. Now, can people do anything in their pod? We will need better apps that would help you, that will give you a better experience, like what Google does with Google Drive or Apple with iCloud, to make it smooth and sort of like, upload this file, and you can examine it, move things around. So I had several questions, and I investigated the answers as one would do in the internet, right? I feel that the idea is to use the technology that we have, HTML and HTTP, to provide this pod service. So essentially, repackaging all that technology in a way that helps people manage their own information with the help of service providers. So we need like a some sort of product manager type people that can go through the entire flow and define a user experience. We don't have that right now, and so that's why it's early days. I see potential, and I think that if the service providers or even especially the application developers, if they come up with ways to actually share information, that's where the crux lies. So your information is in a pod, but how you store it, the structure of that information is important, because if it doesn't help if particular companies store their version of the information in your pod, but then only they can decipher it or make use of the data model. So they have to like coalesce into shareable data models, so that for real, you go to a hospital, they store your medical data in there. You go to the next hospital, and they should be able to use the information, instead of having to wrangle with how they decided to store customer information, that it could be different. Ways to help users, companies especially, actually share the information is very important. And I don't see that. Tom said that they are working on those things, and they should work on that, because I think that's very important, and to make it so that the user can trust that, yeah, my information is in my pod, and the people who are authorized to use them can access them, and they're not going to mess it up. So that's a very important thing, that you want to trust that your data will not be corrupted or anything like that. So,
all right. Bravo, fantastic work. A lot of heavy lifting on both the writing up the side and trying stuff out and figuring things out. So kudos. So I think that we've got at least a proof of concept that the technology does seem to provide the kind of interoperability at the technical level that we care about. But it's a big open question whether it is, quote unquote, usable enough to solve the larger social problems that we're really interested in. And to me, that really comes down to a question of incentives, right? The reason that Facebook, maybe not Twitter, but Apple and Google spend so much money on trying to make software usable is they have a clear profit incentive to get people through the door and happy to the point where they can monetize them one way or the other. And it is not clear that anybody has that. Now, actually, Tom, I don't know if you know about this. Why did Graphmetrics decide to use SOLID? Was it that they saw it as the future and took a leap of faith, or did they have actual customers who were demanding it?
Leap of faith. They decided to bet on the future. Yeah.
Right. So right now we have, I think that's one of my senses, that like heroic technologists are betting on this, and therefore they're making something. And because there is no clear market demand, they make something that works for them. And that is stage one, right? So that has to happen, and it is happening. So good for them for getting this far. I guess the next thing is you need some sort of toehold market where people actually use this stuff in anger. Like, oh, I need to get my documents from Matterport to Graphmetrics in some standard way so I can manage my building information management system. And I guess that's probably the next milestone, is if two actual businesses use a pod as the primary way their customers use it, because that would, so that.
Let me tell you where they are. Their main initial market is construction industry, building buildings, and they have two trial users. One built that new building in Times Square, that lifted up theater, and they have masses of other building projects. And the other built the Tesla factory in Berlin. It's a German company, but it's one of the largest construction companies in Europe. And they have both trialed this with total buildings. And I don't know the formal conclusion, but I haven't heard any bad stuff yet. So
sorry, but I don't know whether they see the solid pod as a minor implementation detail that they mostly ignore, or they actually take advantage of the protocols to do something.
So they're interested in something that Ernest didn't talk about, and I'm not sure what he's been informed on. So so the solid thing is just, for them, it's just there, and that's nice that it's sort of the future. But they're not demanding it, and they might well have settled for something else. What they're after is the ability to read old blueprints, and I mean from 1930s, and to intelligently decode them. This is currently 800 hours per blueprint human effort for everybody else. And so they have the ability, the intelligence, if you like, the artificial intelligence to find every little part and every little supplier and everything on drawings with virtually no human effort. That's the big attraction. And then the moment they've done that, totally automatic, they have then much better query access. They can ask a simple question, and if the information they need is on 3 different blueprints or documents, it'll pull in just that and put it together and show it to them. Normally, people have to open blueprint after blueprint and start looking for things. In other words, the search process is very much more cumbersome. Right. This is almost immediately getting what they need at the building site.
I guess you can stop sharing, Ernest, because we're kind of going off. Just so I understand, though, that sounds like a really great feature of the Trini product.
Yes, it is.
But the customers are not using Solid at all to do that. Does Solid make it easier for Graphmetrics to deliver that functionality, or is it kind of irrelevant?
Good question. I don't know.
I would imagine not, because if so okay. So back to my original point.
These companies are very concerned about the security of their data for competitors and Russians. So this it's the security aspects of Solid that are interesting for them.
Maybe.
And also the ability to share multinationally in a much more elegant and inexpensive way.
Interesting. So that the okay, so I mean, what I'm hearing is the customer, there is no solid pull from the customer for Solid technology, but
correct.
It's possible that the Solid technology gives companies like Graphmetrics a vendor-independent way to deliver advanced storage and security. That's at least a hypothesis worth exploring.
That's good. That's good. There's a whole list of reasons why they've done it, and they're still very happy with the idea. There's been no question of going back to older things. They'd just be
right. So one could imagine a future where Solid becomes like a white label storage thing, and nobody even knows that it's Solid, but a lot of companies using it behind the scenes to get some economies of scale over time. And that's not a bad future. It's not the future we're looking at. I think the real question is going to be when a customer has 2 vendors that use Solid, do they get a network effect? like, oh, because everyone's using Solid, or because at least 2 of my vendors are using Solid, I get sort of cloud-like benefits without lock into AWS or Google. That seems like the next milestone. And who knows when we're going to get
Something
there.
like that. It's for various reasons exceptionally much more easy than anything that Oracle or anybody has to integrate large quantities of complex data, much of which has not been digitized before ever, like old blueprints. So it's people in the building industry are just, wow, if this really works, it's a winner, and there is no competition. At one point, Oracle tried to buy Graphmetrics to keep the competitors away from this. They were already using, their customers at Oracle were already using early versions, and so they knew there was something very real here, even 2 or 3 years ago, before they started building the solid infrastructure around it.
Yeah. So anyway, it feels like, just to put a bow on this, like Graphmetrics is definitely doing some cool stuff. And I think, thank you for this effort. I don't feel like there's much more we can do with Solid in the short term. It really is coming down to, market adoption and vendor adoption of the technology to see how it plays out. Maybe we'll just put a pin in to check it in 6 months and see if
from our point of view. Yeah, from our point of view, there are privacy features here where that are exceptionally interesting from the democratization of your data, keeping control of it.
Yeah.
That's not something they're emphasizing here. It's just billed as, your corporate data is a lot more secure. But the thing that individuals might be interested to secure their private data and their rights to the data is there in Solid.
Right, and I think I covered that when I did my analysis and gave them high marks for the security and privacy and autonomy aspects of that.
We'll see.
But we will see. All right.
By the way, we do think that they have the most advanced system actually implementing Solid at the moment. That the others are very primitive, almost academic experiment type stuff, and this is full-scale industrial stuff. So they think they've got a lead here. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, and so the real question, I guess, is whether Graphmetrics will be successful enough to inspire envy among their ecosystem.
I think so. I put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah,
I've got a considerable bet in it.
All right, we will.
Not to mention my son, Kai, he's sold his house with his wife's permission to invest in this. Yeah, so I mean, like, if
Graphmetrics as a whole, not just the
Solid doesn't work out, he needs a good tent on the Oslo Fjord.
All right, but we sold his house to do Graphmetrics, not just to do Solid, I hope.
To do Graphmetrics, right? No.
Okay, so yes, I have much more confidence that Graphmetrics will succeed.
Yeah. No, so
right,
Solid
is just possible one. There's a future.
Yeah, Solid is just one architectural choice that they made, but it's not the main idea.
Yeah.
But I think it sounds to me like really good idea. Be avant-garde here and have some.
I think there's an interesting design pattern we can watch for. Is that if you need to deliver white label private cloud services globally, pods might be a really good way to do that. And so that could be really good for the producer side of people who are building stuff. It could succeed there and then fail dismally in the consumer market. We've had lots of technologies like that. That is a failure mode. So the first question is whether Graphmetrics succeeds, God bless them. Second question is whether it takes off within a vendor-centric industry. And then the third question is whether it will ever make it to the consumer. So I'll put a pin to check on it in 6 months, and maybe we can bring Kai on to let us know how it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. But by the way, there's one thing that wasn't mentioned, and I want to put it on the table here. My understanding and my belief is that this is the next generation of AI. This is AGI. It is not based on scanning patterns and teaching people patterns at all. it's designed specifically to think like a human thinks in perception.
Well, right. So I think the technical term, I believe, is that it has a world model, that it has a conceptual universe that sort of is formally coherent,
Yep.
rather than just being arbitrary pattern
Yep.
matching. And
Yep.
so that is right. First of all, that's the thing that Graphmetrics is doing, nothing to do with Solid.
Right.
Just to make sure
Right.
conversations are clear. And then at this point, I want to segue into Ernest. And he had a presentation around Chat SMK.
Oh,
Correct.
okay, good. By the way, before we leave it, Ernest, don't be shy. Kai loves to pick up any complaint or problem of any even so-called trivial nature, because they're in a position to clean things up before they have to present it to their clients. So they're grateful for any complaint whatsoever.
Okay.
And you have
Yeah.
a point of view of knowing other, systems that probably is going to be useful. So we appreciate if you really make a long list of everything you do better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Be a reviewer.
I had a great chat with Kai, and we talked about a lot of things. It was a lot. It was supposed to be like half an hour.
Yeah.
We spoke like for 4 hours. It was, and he was late for him
Really?
too. So like,
Well,
yeah.
that's good. That worries me. He's supposed to be focused on getting this product out the door.
Yeah.
But
Maybe you should
He found
discourage
it
Ernest from
interesting
filing more feature requests.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So
Let's-
segue, Chat SMK, I believe.
Yeah, SMK. Yes.
You have a document to share for this one too?
Yes. Yes. Here. You see it, right?
Yep.
Got it.
Oh,
Could be
bigger.
Rock
Could be
on.
bigger. Yeah, that's right size.
Okay. Chat SMK. So let's get this one. Our language sucks. And we've seen it. We see language is ambiguous. When we use it, our motives are suspect, and we are. It's supposed to say.
Was that a deliberate typo to point out how bad we are at communicating?
Correct. Yeah.
It worked well.
Perfect.
We
Example.
suck at communicating for typos, and also other reasons. Through language, we hide our true motives, we obfuscate the truth, and we manipulate others. So we spread lies and reap division.
Are you talking about Putin here?
Putin,
I couldn't resist.
the Republican Party. I'm talking about anybody, anybody. It doesn't have to be a political party, but our motives are suspect, and we use that to our advantage, to sway people's opinions or views. And we have to make it easy for people to find and analyze the fact, the truth of things. So yeah, that's my motivation in this project. We have to improve our reasoning. We have to become better thinkers. We have to use appropriate language. We should share our knowledge, right? We shouldn't keep the things that we know to ourselves, because what to use. And we also have to share the processes that we use to reason and collaborate. So improving our language. We have, because of the structure that I will describe later, we need 3 levels of language. The essential language, which is the language used to describe concepts. Okay, what is a person? What makes a person a person? Person is alive, is a mammal, all those things. We need a language for that. And that language, even though I use English to deal with those things, and somebody else will use German, and somebody else will use French, what we are dealing with is the same. It's just that we are working at this essential level. So it's like working with a tool. A tool will have language in English or German or Russian, but the tool it does the same thing. A hammer hammers a nail, whether you're speaking Russian or English or German, right? So it is the language I'm talking about is the language that defines, oh, that's a nail. It's going to be a nail in any language. So somebody else, Spanish will say clavo, and in other languages we say other languages, but the actual use of the nail is the same no matter where you are. So that's the essential language. Then we have the technical language. The technical language is the language of actually the essential language is the concept of a nail. What is a nail and what do you use a nail for? Okay, so that's the concept. That's the thing that's in your head, in your mind. Then the technical language is okay. Once you know what a nail is, how do you use a nail? How do you how does it interact with the wood that you're nailing it into? How do I use a hammer to nail the nail in? That's the technical language, which is still apart from the next level, but it adds context to language. And then we have the social language. This is the language we use to actually communicate our ideas, to move concepts from mind to mind. We use the social language. That's where we insert culture and other things, experiences, worldviews. That's what we use to communicate ideas more fully in a human level. So yeah, we have the conceptualization. This is where you model your concepts. What I was talking about. So who participates? It could be with just one person. You decide how, which is what I was doing. Okay, how do I model this thing? So what is a thing? Right? What is an action? An action is a thing. Quality is a thing. So that's where you start with your hierarchy of concepts. Several people can participate, and even smart systems, because that's what we are doing. Tom and Ernie and I, we are actually thinking together. We are extending our mind to include these computers and the connections, the data connections that allow us to speak. That's all an extension of our minds. Some of it we can't control. We can use well, but we can't really control how they work. But still, it extends our minds, and we are using that to think together. So we have to conceptualize things so that we can know how to think of our thought processes. We have to go, thinking a little bit abstractly. But anyway, we have to define these essential concepts, and that's where we use the essential language. So we determine the essence of things. So I figure you have to determine the essence of things. An action is an activity is something like running or eating or speaking, that you define what that is. An action is an activity with objects. So there's going to be a thing doing the activity, maybe a thing receiving the activity. We have cardinality, which is counting things. Measurement, which is measuring things. Relations are relation. Relation is how things are related to each other. I don't want to use the actual, the you'll see later. And then we have
joins. Because we got started a bit late, we only have about 15 minutes left.
15 minutes? Okay. So joins is, when you, you put things together, putting things together. Okay. Instantiation is what the language we need to reason about the operation of things, decision making, and simulation. So once we know what the essence of things thing is, and we know how they interact, then we can simulate stuff. We can imagine. We can imagine in your head how do you nail and how you hammer a nail. You can picture it in your head. So that's you don't necessarily have to actually do it, but in your mind you can picture that. So that's the language of instantiation, like making the concepts not actually real, but actually using them in your head to determine how they work. Then communication is the social language. That's when, like I said, we need to move the language we need to use to move concepts from mind to mind. Each participant has their own language, and we have to have systems that would translate between the essential language and the technical language into the participant's social language. And the components of the social language is culture, locale, vocabulary, sentence construction. I study German every day. Ich studiert jeden Tag Deutsch. So I said the same thing in two languages, and because of the structure of each language, the sentence construction is different. So that's where on top of the essence and the technical, you put the things that the language defines, that forces you to use. So yeah, that's strictly a social language thing. So we need smart systems. A system, in my view, is a collection of procedures, processes, and state machines. That's as simple as it is. And a state machine is it's not an object, but it's a way to keep track of the state of things. Somebody might be eating, so the machine, the state is eating. When you finish, then the thing that says that the person is hungry is now says the person is not hungry because the person just ate. So a state machine keeps tracks of that. It's a way to model the world or model a world, a system, in a way that you can find the status of things or the state of things, or it's like I said, state machine. So it's the status of things. But you can, using that, you can model knowledge and all kinds of things. So smart systems give us efficiency, and if we codify our reasoning strategies and we enable systems to work effectively with humans, that's when we become more efficient. People need to trust their systems. So to foment trust, we have to allow humans to examine a system's conceptualization, its state machines and their history, and the procedures that it has used to modify those state machines. And our systems must reflect our thought processes. And so what do we do after we teach systems how to think like us? Then we teach them how to speak. So like the modeling the conceptualization I talked about before, the thing, quality, and activity, we had to translate that into nouns, adjectives, verbs, and prepositions. That's a relation. Our model uses prepositions to indicate relation, and conjunctions to indicate joins, to describe joins. So that's where we map concepts into language. Socializing decision making. So when you interact with the system, we have query and response. We have language parsing. A system ensures that it understands what the speaker said. So that's where a human gets a response from the system telling the human, this is what I understood you said. and then the human can say, yes, that's correct, or it is incorrect. So the system updates the state machine, and we have software agents that work with multiple state machines. So the software agents are the state machines manipulators, and they can work with multiple ones. So in our example, I have a state machine, Tom has one, Ernie has one, and then together we have a communal state machine. So we work with those things together, and it will make our interactions more efficient and effective too. Personal. I keep going ahead of the slides. So personal, group, and communal conceptualizations, state machines, and processes would make us efficient. So, having said all that, Chat SMK is like my view on chat, on my response to Chat GPT. Chat SMK is state machine knowledge, and aims to provide an experience similar to what Chat GPT does, which is kind of magic, but with transparency, making it less magic. Prototype 0 of this is to work with a limited vocabulary, like a 5-year-old child, and to learn with the interactions with the operator. And so my goal is this will be a 1-year project, divided into 4 phases. The first one is to get my environment ready, then to convert statements into knowledge, and this includes parsing English and updating state machines, right? Then to answer questions using that knowledge, another 3 months, and then to learn finally to learn from a document. So have a document that has a bunch of statements, and to from reading the document to generate a state, or populate a state machine that reflects the knowledge that the document has in it. And this is one way to democratize truth. We need socialized decision making, systematized ways to make the decisions. Facts have only one version, and we have to make it easy for people to find what that is, because anything else is just opinion. And yeah, that's the end of that. So Chat SMK is the transparent way to interact with a system that is not magic. Like
right. So I think there's a couple of interesting things there, and we only have a few minutes. I think the biggest challenge I see, or at least the thing I'm trying to understand, is the question of representation. Like a fax may only have one version, but they can have multiple representations. Like, what is the temperature? Well, is it 32 degrees Fahrenheit? Is it 0 degrees Celsius? Is it 233 degrees Kelvin? Those may be equivalent facts, but they're very different representations. And some things like, like heat and temperature, whatever, are consistent, but not trivially transforming. And the interesting problem in this space is, how do you represent knowledge, right? Do you represent it as a series of formal statements that you have a precise understanding of, but are those defined in terms of other English words that are still meaningless to non-English speakers?
Yeah, that's something that the 3 strata of the language, essential, technical, and social, come into play, because the social language, like you mentioned, temperature, right? Celsius versus Kelvin versus Fahrenheit. We've seen the problems of not choosing one or choosing the appropriate one.
Right. So, but like the way that, like, for example, ChatGPT solves that problem is it literally punts it to Wolfram Alpha. So Wolfram Alpha has spent a lifetime categorizing numerical quantities. And so now ChatGPT with plugins says, okay, I recognize that this problem has a well-defined formal system. Let me ask that formal system to calculate things for me rather than just guessing. Right? So the question is, do you want to build something more like Wolfram Alpha?
No.
More like, so the question, yeah.
I'm always on the side of the individual.
Well, I mean, regardless, but do you want to create a thing that can manipulate formal symbols efficiently, or something that can do heuristic guessing?
Well, both, I guess. But
Yeah.
the idea is that the system would present information in the language of the person.
Well, right. So, okay. Right. So let's let me. We got to converge quickly here, and I want to give Tom. I think the interesting thing, I sent you a link to something called Dolly, which is a open source language model that was retrained to do ChatGPT-like functionality. And right now it's oriented for businesses by a company called Databricks. But they do have a free trial where you could probably figure out a way to hack it yourself, or might be able to pull some strings and find someone to access you. So the ability to create your own large language model with ChatGPT-like functionality is pretty close. And I think that, and there's I think the biggest idea that I think is interesting is the idea of having a personal digital companion, right? I have a system that is trained in a way that I trust, that knows my information about me, that I can ask questions and understands what I know and don't know and can explain things in a tailored fashion. At least that was the thing that you said that I found the most intriguing. Was that a reasonable takeaway, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's another company, I think they're called Subconscious, which they're trying to build a business model around this, giving people their own personal digital companion, et cetera. But, it's fraud. But then, so there are some interesting, so I think that's maybe a good homework assignment, is to see, okay, stage one is build infrastructure. What off-the-shelf systems do they exist that I could take and use and trust? And which ones are easy to set up? Which ones actually do I fully have control over? Or even just doing maybe we can send you some links and you can dig into them and see if any of those are close to a starting point for the kind of thing you need. So you don't have to build your GPT from scratch.
I already gave my homework. Gave me myself. It will take me a year.
Well, so before you take them a year and come back in a year, how would you take a month and say, okay, 3 months is to build the infrastructure. Okay, in 1 month, why don't you tell us what different possible infrastructures you found and evaluated that might help you get there? Is that fair?
Well, the schedule is my schedule starts on Monday.
Okay.
And so I guess I could, as I work on that, I can see other takes on the same problem.
Yeah, I think that seems like a wise thing to do regardless, right? Is who is trying to solve similar problems, and do they have ideas or technology that you can use? Because a ton of the stuff is open source.
Yes, and that's a major point, that anything that I do or that in regards of this problem has to be open source, has to be open, has to be transparent.
And the two big ideas, I think, are an open source system, but also an open data training model, right? You want to know how it was trained and what it was trained on in a transparent way.
And also, when two or more people get together, they have to make things efficient. They have to come up with a shareable or a shared model.
Right. So so there's this idea of a personal digital companion that you can know and trust and train the way you want. And then the next level up is this idea of social, interactions between things where they can translate. And that's a much harder problem. That's like PhD level research project today. It may be a trivial problem in 3 months, who knows? But if we can solve the first problem in 3 months of getting a personal digital companion, then we can deal with the social problem.
Oh, yeah. No, the social problem is like after.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I want to give Tom some time to respond if he has any questions or suggestions before we break. You're muted.
I'm happy with what you've done, so we can make more progress on it.
Okay, good. I plan on every month. Well, I plan on politicizing the code, because I wanna, at least like Ernie says, I've been talking for years. I want to switch modes and show. I want all these concepts that I'm talking about. I wanna reflect them in actual code that you can plug and test and work with. So yeah.
One thing, in the background on a one blank page, if you did the kind of thing we've done before with your objectives clarified, your top 10 critical objectives with this.
Oh yeah, those are also in there. I kind of like internalize them, right?
Yeah.
And move forward. Because yes, we talked about the requirements for a system that would solve this problem, that has to be open and distributed and all those things.
Yes, maybe you already have them when I think about it, but there should be a one-page reference to them for anybody looking at what you're doing. Look, this is what we.
Yeah, especially for Chat SMK, right? Which is slightly different than the general Datocracy thing.
Mm-hmm.
A list of your value objectives would be interesting.
But yes, exactly. So I will publicize that.
I have to go meet my boss. I will try to summarize the discussion in an email. But great work, Ernest. Very exciting.
Yeah,
we have a new project to look forward to.
All right.
Take care. Thanks for giving our graph metrics a trial.
Oh yeah.
Looking forward to more interaction.
Ask him if he'll open source their AI model. Maybe Ernest can build Chat SMK on that.
Probably. We're very